The Consulting Success podcast is powered by the Clarity Coaching Program. If you'd like to work directly with the Consulting Success team and receive personal coaching and support to optimize and grow your consulting business, marketing, and revenue, visit consultingsuccess.com to find out more and apply.
Welcome to the Consulting Success Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Zapersky. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into the world of elite consultants, where you'll learn the strategies, tactics, and mindset to grow a highly profitable and successful consulting business. Hey everyone, it's Michael Zapersky, and today I'm here with Nick Campbell. Nick, welcome.
Thanks so much, Michael.
Hey Nick, I'm really excited for this. So you are an MIT graduate, a speaker, an adjunct law school professor. You lead a bespoke advisory firm focused on strengthening social sector infrastructure, design in the areas of governance, grant making, and management. And you work very closely with philanthropies, NGOs, social enterprises to manage risk and crisis in these areas. So why don't we start off and just kind of tell us, how did you get into this whole world before you actually started your consulting firm? What were you doing? Just kind of take us back to the beginning or the early days.
Yeah, sure. So I sort of fell into nonprofit work, working with exempt organizations, as many usually say they have as well. I started a private practice as a lawyer. I was a tax attorney, and I thought that that's what I was going to do, focus on M&A deals and all kinds of for-profit structurings. And instead, I was able to start working with nonprofits. A more senior attorney was leaving the firm and asked me to take over a lot of her matters, and they were all with nonprofits and exempt organizations. And so I sort of fell into the world of nonprofits and realized that I really enjoyed it. I was getting intellectually challenged. I loved what I was doing on a day-to-day basis, and I really felt like I was helping organizations and individuals have really significant impact throughout the world. And so I focused really exclusively on public charities, private foundations, and social welfare organizations, as well as other exempt organizations. After a while, I got really interested about what was happening on the other side of the desk, so to speak, what was making our clients come to us and ask for legal advice. And I went over to a firm client on secondment for a year. And that was a large community foundation, the New York Community Trust, and went over as Associate General Counsel. And that's when I really realized what it meant to be a part of a team in-house and not sort of be on that assembly line feeling that you would get at a firm. And I did that for a year and wanted to find out what it was like on a global scale, and went over to the Open Society Foundations, which is George Soros's philanthropy, and was there for about 7 years as Deputy General Counsel and Secretary of many organizations within the Open Society Foundations. I had a focus on the United States, Latin America, and the Caribbean, and Sub-Saharan Africa, and focused exactly on operations, grant making, structuring all over the world. And after about 7 years, I wanted to really wear those hybrid roles formally. And that's when I went over to Dalio Philanthropies as their Senior Director of Operations and Foundation Counsel. And so wore both that General Counsel hat as well as Operations hat, and really focused on building out the philanthropic enterprise there, just as I had done with the Open Society Foundations, but on a much different scale. So I've been doing it for a very long time.
Yeah, no, you have. I mean, it's amazing that as I've gotten to know you over the last couple of years or so now, it's amazing how driven you are. And especially when you just kind of went through where you've come from kind of the background in terms of school and then career wise. Take us back, even before that, to the early days. What do you think created this drive within you? Just paint the picture for us of your upbringing a little bit, and if there's anything that you think that in those early years really kind of set the stage for the drive that you have to power through these prestigious schools and very well-known organizations.
I think it was my parents. They were both very focused on education and excellence. And so they had this mindset of whatever you step into with excellence. And I've just followed that mantra and that mindset throughout my entire life, both personally and professionally. So it carried me, through growing up. We lived in the Cayman Islands and then moved to Barbados and then over to the United States. And in each instance, I had to step into a new way of living, a new way of thinking, a new set of friends, a new set of learning opportunities and education. And in each instance, each environment, you're taking those principles with you, which is you step into everything you go into with excellence, and you just keep going until you get there.
Tell me more about that. I want to dig a little bit deeper. Like when you say that your parents taught you about excellence, I mean, both you and we have young kids right now. I would love to hear a little bit more about what they did. Like, how do they actually teach you excellence? How do they demonstrate that for you? And then how are you maybe teaching that to your kids right now? One, so that I can just selfishly maybe apply that as well. But I think many people just listening, even if their kids are older, they don't have kids, that we can all benefit from focusing on excellence and applying that.
Mm-hmm. I think it was a lot of learning by example. My father, they were from Barbados. We were all born in Barbados. And, he came from a very poor family, poor environment, and he was still able to win scholarships to go to college, and he wanted to travel the world. And so again, this thinking, you're coming from a very poor environment and really thinking about what else is out there and how you can continue your education. And so he was able to get a scholarship, go to college, start teaching really throughout the Caribbean. And my mother the same way, she was a nurse and then won her scholarship to go and train in other islands within the Caribbean. And so they both had this love of adventure, of trying new things and really saying, whenever we step into something, we're going to do it well. So I learned it just by watching them. And then whenever I did anything, if I got a 98 on a test, it was, this is amazing. You celebrate your wins, but then also saying, okay, how could we get better at the remaining two? And I hear about those stories where people are essentially saying, well, yes, you got the 98, but not even recognizing that and focusing on the two that you missed. And instead, what they did a really good job of was celebrating the wins and then saying, how can we continue to step into excellence? So it was both by watching them, but also in how they approached my own education and just even in engaging with other people, knowing that you can learn from other people, no matter like where they're from, what their backgrounds are. And just putting that all into play, I think really set me up on that path of whenever I step into something, I'm going to go at it with excellence, with diligence, and really invest both my time and energy to make sure that I'm achieving the best result I can.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Thanks for sharing that. So I think it was February 2019 that you started Build Up Advisory Group, which is your consultancy. Why? I mean, you here you're working in some very well-known, prestigious organizations. I'm guessing that your pay was nothing to sneeze at and you were doing great work. Like, why did you decide to step out? What kind of caused you to feel, I should leave everything that I have here and go off and start something myself?
It's really for her, right? For her being Kaden and my younger daughter, Nova. I wanted to get more flexibility, and I wanted that in two main ways. One is with my family, because I wanted the ability to be around in the middle of the day if I needed to for them. I wanted to be present for them in a way that I didn't think I could within a structure that was not my own. The second was to have flexibility around the kinds of work that I did, the kinds of projects that I worked on, and the kinds of organizations and individuals I did that work with. So in my practice, what I really pride myself on doing is working only with brave organizations, brave nonprofits, and philanthropies that are trying to affect social change throughout the world. And so I thought about what would it feel like to have that kind of flexibility to pick and choose what I worked on and who I worked with. And that's when I said, well, what would it look like if I created something of my own?
Yeah, I remember, Nick, that back in one of our weekly clarity coaching calls, that you recognize the importance of marketing your business, doing follow-up, like the whole prospecting thing. But I remember at one point you said you just kind of felt like you were getting a bit stuck, right? Like you knew you need to do it, but you weren't always getting it done. And I asked you, why are you doing what you're doing? What's really driving you? Why did you leave the corporate world and start this whole thing? And you said just that. It's I did it for my kids, really to be with them, have greater flexibility. Do you remember that call? Do you remember that kind of conversation?
Oh, I remember it clearly. It was really the turning point, one of the turning points for me, because when you said like, you have to think about that, and immediately they came to mind, like I'm doing this for my family. They are depending on me in that way. And so it just crystallized everything for me and really said to me, yes, there's the work of the thing. There's the client work that you have to do, but there's also the building of the business. There's the building of this lifestyle that you said that you wanted to create for you and your family. So every time that you decide not to do something or you don't feel like doing outreach, you're moving away further and further from that dream.
Yeah, and that's really, really important, I think, for everyone to hear, because we all face challenge around doing things that we're not excited to do, right? They feel uncomfortable, like venturing into that new territory. And for a lot of people, that marketing, selling, their services, or kind of just getting out there, prospecting, right? Reaching out to clients is not the most enjoyable area, right? Most consultants are very good at what they do. They're experts, but they're not necessarily marketers or don't enjoy that part of it. But I mean, it's, you really grasp onto that concept. So for everyone listening, watching, just, really think about, like, why are you doing what you're doing, right? What's the reason that you got into running your consulting business? What's your goal? What are you doing it for? And hopefully you'll, in thinking about that, that'll kind of be the impetus and a bit of push for you to continue working towards that direction. So let's kind of come back then, Nick. You launched your business in February 2019. When you made that transition, what surprised you, or what did you find most challenging in the early days?
I think what was surprising to me was what ended up being more of the focus and a bit more challenging. So I think when you think about starting a consulting practice or a business, you think about, how am I going to get clients? Like, how am I going to be able to build a business? And so I was really focused on how many clients I would be able to get. Would I be able to get clients? Could it be a feasible thing? And when I got started, the clients actually came a lot easier than I thought. Like, that was not the challenge. The challenge was, in addition to doing client work, can you also build your business? Can you also do the marketing? Can you also do the outreach? Can you also do the behind the scenes running of an entire organization that is really completely up to you? And so it was surprising to me that became actually the focus. And that was much more challenging than trying to go out and find clients.
So, I mean, a lot of the work that you do is in the quote unquote kind of like nonprofit space. And I think a lot of consultants or just, experts that are working in nonprofit, have a background or are passionate in that space, come up with the kind of the saying, or have the belief, I should say, that nonprofit equals less money, right? It's not as quote unquote lucrative. Yet I know for you and many of our other clients who work in those spaces around governance or nonprofits or fundraising, it can actually be very lucrative. It can, you can still have a very, like a high income business. Just any thoughts that you have, like your experiences for someone who might be saying to themselves, yeah, I want to work in nonprofit. That's my passion, or that's my background. But I always hear that nonprofits like don't spend money. What advice would you offer to them, or what might you say just based on your experience?
I think you have to be clear on the kinds of nonprofits that you're working with, because that category of nonprofits is actually very big category of organizations. There's lots of different types of nonprofit organizations. There are, hospitals that are nonprofit organizations, and they're multi-billion-dollar enterprises. And then there are the very local, place-based nonprofits that may have a budget of $5,000 for the organization. So I think you have to be very clear on the kinds of nonprofits that you want to work with, and then the kind of value that you want to offer to them, or that you can offer to them. So I think that once nonprofit is just like any other organization, in that if you offer them something of value, they're able to then say, here's the investment that we're willing to make in order to receive that value. And I've been able to work very closely with nonprofit organizations. I work almost primarily with grant-making organizations, and I'm very clear on the value that I can provide to those organizations. So I think just getting clear on what are their needs and what's the value that you can provide to them will help you clarify, okay, these are the kinds of nonprofit organizations that I'll be able to work with.
While we work with a lot of seasoned and experienced consultants here at Consulting Success, I'm often contacted by new early-stage consultants. Invariably, the question I'm asked is, what are the steps I should take to become a successful consultant and grow my consulting business to my first 6 figures per year? Well, I'm excited to announce that we've opened the doors for our Momentum program. This is our most popular program for early stage consultants, and it has helped almost 1,000 consultants to start, run, and grow successful consulting businesses. It gives you the step-by-step plan to help you with your messaging, your fees, and pricing strategies, how to win more proposals, how to go to market more effectively, developing a marketing system to generate leads consistently, and so much more. And right now, until September the 19th, you can sign up for Momentum and get 50% off the regular price by going to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO. Only 100 spots are available to join Momentum and get 50% off. This deal is only available until September the 19th or until all 100 spots are gone. We won't be opening up new spots in this program for several months, so don't wait. Go to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO. You joined our Clarity Coaching program, I believe, last summer, and your business has grown tremendously since then. I mean, it's just been amazing seeing what you've created and the work that you've put in and the results you've been able to achieve. What would you say has really helped you to create the level of outcome and growth in your business? When you kind of think about everything that you've applied, kind of where you are today, what would you say is kind of like the main focus or has had the biggest impact in you being able to achieve that level of result and success?
It's a really good question. I think it is definitely me being a member of the program and being a part of that community of people who are thinking similarly. They're all consultants. And so a lot of the challenges that you have, even though they're in different industries, they have similar challenges. I think it's also definitely been the coaching that I've received from you and Sam. I know, you always say this, but imperfect action, that has really been huge, particularly for me, because I'm not one of those people that comes up with an idea and I'm just off running before the idea is even fully formed. I can come up with ideas. I'm really creative that way, but I'm also very methodical. So I need to then say, okay, what comes next and next and that, I need to plan that out. And just sometimes saying no, just imperfect action, get it out there and see what happens has been really, really instrumental and critical to my growth.
Love it. Yeah. So you have, as we kind of talked about, before even hitting record, you have kids at home, right? And there are distractions that everyone who's working from home deals with. How do you structure your day, Nick? For people who, because I always see, some people say I don't have enough time, I can't get things done. Yet we all have 24 hours in a day, right? So some people are able to achieve a lot more to make more progress in their business than others. How do you kind of think about your daily routine, your habits, and how do you actually structure your day to ensure that you can be productive and continue to grow the business?
So you can likely hear my daughter in the background who is frustrated with remote school. So this is definitely a constant in the household. And luckily, my husband is able to spend a lot of time with both of my daughters. And so that frees me up to do a lot of the work. But in addition to that, it's a lot of planning and scheduling. So even before I start the week, and you and I have definitely had conversations about this, particularly earlier on in my consulting journey, but I start before the week begins, I plan it out and I look at all the upcoming meetings, see how I have to prepare, and I plan those things out. I also determine on a weekly basis what my weekly goal is, and then what are the 3 things that I want to accomplish each of those days. I also block out a couple of days a week to focus exclusively on the business. So that means that I'm not taking any client calls, any other calls, any partner calls on those 2 days. Sometimes it happens because there's emergency situations that come up and I'll jump on a call, or there's scheduling issues, but it's pretty rare. So those 2 days are carved out for me to just really focus and do work. And then the other 3 days, I have times blocked off where I take calls, because otherwise what I was finding in the very beginning was when it's your own schedule, you can literally be on phone calls every single day of the week for multiple hours. And then you start having questions about, when will I do my work? When will I build the business? When will I go out and market? Just share some value with people who I may not be working with, but I want to share that value with them. So I'm a planner by nature, and I'm pretty organized, but I think just planning the week ahead of time has been incredible to making sure that I am able to accomplish the weekly goals and the daily goals that I set. for myself.
Let's also then talk a little bit about, I think, another area that maybe has contributed to your growth or at least supported it. And I'd love to get your perspective, which is building a team, right? So you've kind of started to add people or assistant and so forth. Just talk us through like kind of what you've done and what your thought process has been, or any mindset shifts that you've had in regards to, building a team and having people to enable you to continue to see growth.
Yeah. So I know that a lot of people think, at least when they own businesses, they struggle with delegating and giving things up. Like day one, I was like, who could I delegate to? That was really my thought. By that point, worked in large organizations, smaller organizations, where I knew that once you had a team, you could get so much more done. And I wanted to build a team, but I also wanted to be responsible about building that team. And so I know that I needed to bring on a person or other team members when I had enough work to sustain that. And so I really just worked in the business, on the business, to hit some pain points, because I wanted to see what it felt like to do my own books, to do my own scheduling, all of those different pieces that I then ended up delegating out to other people. I wanted to feel what it was like. And I also wanted to understand it so I could explain it to others and be able to have intelligent conversations with them. So the first person that I brought on board was an assistant who's still with me now. And it was, once I brought her on, I was able to 10x the amount of work that I could get done, the amount of things I could get done. Her talents really complemented mine, and her skill set really complemented mine. So where I was not as great, she was stellar. And so it really, when I brought her on, I was able to do so much more. And
what kind of things is she doing for you, just so everyone can have a sense of like, what was the low-hanging fruit that you delegated to her as quickly as you could that really freed you up to spend more time on the high-value tasks in the business?
Yes, it was scheduling. It was doing first drafts of things. So even saying, oh, thanks so much for these comments, I'll put them into the agreement or I'll put them into the document. Doing those types of tasks where you think, oh, this is not going to take a lot of time. I'll just, I'll knock this out in 15 minutes. And then 35 minutes later, you're like, oh, I'm done. And you think again, oh, that didn't take a lot of time, but you have to multiply that out. And so just being able to say, can you handle my calendar? Can you handle all my scheduling? Can you, somebody says, hey, we have time to meet, then I just copy her in and she takes it from there. Being able to handle social media posting, marketing. Again, I'm coming up with the content, but I'm also brainstorming with her because, again, she's really good at social media strategy and knows what's out there and is able to say, oh, let's think about this together, and then being able to implement. Because I think execution, when it's just you, it can be pretty difficult and you can delay things. But she was able to just really step in very quickly and help with a lot of execution.
Awesome. And just kind of talk us through a little bit of what you're looking and thinking about now in terms of team, any other team members in play, any kind of future hires that you see. Just what are your thoughts in terms of the team going forward and what you're looking at?
Yes. So my assistant is now going to become an employee, and she is my program coordinator now. And that really means that she focuses project management, on doing a lot of the partner outreach and engagement, joining me on client calls, helping out with check-ins and strategy check-ins and accountability check-ins with my clients. So doing a lot more of the substantive lifting. And so what happens now is we have a need for someone who's focused on relationships and operations. So we're thinking of like a relationships and operations assistant or associate who can do the calendaring, do the scheduling for the entire organization, not just me. I'm helping out with the operational tasks that come up. I'm helping out with the client asks that come up as well. So that's definitely an immediate need. And then I'm bringing on an attorney who is really familiar with nonprofits and philanthropies, and having the ability to both advise from a legal perspective, but also from an operational perspective as well, which is actually going to be quite hard because usually you find one or the other lawyers who can, advise on the operational pieces, but they really just want to do operations. They don't want to do the marking up of agreements and things like that, or you find the reverse. So those are the two critical hires that I have next. And that should happen within the first quarter of next year.
And with the lawyer, is that like a strategic move in terms of, is that to work in projects that you've already been delivering on, or is this that you see a new opportunity to add additional value for clients that you haven't really been able to address without having a quote unquote kind of practicing lawyer?
So I thought initially that that was going to be the case, that I would really be focused on the consulting arm or advisory arm only and sort of do an add-on for legal advice and counsel as it came up. But what has happened actually is the legal advice and counsel piece has really grown, because the kinds of experience that I bring to the conversation is really based on that intersection of operations, strategy, legal, and programmatic approach that I don't think a lot of my clients and organizations within the sector generally, they see. And so they're very attracted by it. They're attracted by our model. And so the legal services, like through our general counsel retainer, has grown quite significantly, as well as our consulting services as well. So I want someone who can really go back and forth between the two worlds really nicely.
Yeah, that's amazing. How have you seen your pricing kind of, and the pricing model, pricing strategy shift or change over the last 12 months or so? Like as the business has started to kind of mature and grow, you're building the team. Any big changes that you've made to pricing? Like have you increased prices? Have you changed your pricing model? Any kind of insights or experiences that you can share?
Mm-hmm. I have definitely increased my pricing model, but I've also clarified my offerings. So I think that once I was very clear on I do this, this, and this, it was very easy to raise the investment level, because people saw very quickly, oh, that's the value I'm getting. So they were able to see the offerings, hold them, so to speak, and say, of course, I'd pay you this amount, because the amount of value that I'm receiving, I mean, it's enormous. So I think it was a combination of raising my prices, but also at the same time clarifying the offerings that I provide.
And what would you say has helped you the most to clarify your offers? And was it conversations that you've had, or for someone who might be in a similar position where they're doing good work, the business is growing, things are going in the right direction, or maybe they've plateaued, whatever their situation is, but they may feel like a little bit murky around their offerings. What would you say? Because I know you have definitely dialed in your offerings. You're much clearer, right? Which has led to more confidence and therefore increasing prices and better communications with clients around what you're offering. What do you think has been the biggest factor, or what did you actually do in the business to help you to become clear around the offerings?
I talked to my ideal clients. I talked to people who were within organizations that were ideal nonprofits and philanthropies for the work that I was doing. I really just talked to them to find out their needs, the questions that were coming up, the things that they were struggling with, just to understand how they were perceiving things happening within the sector as well as within their own organization. So it was a combination of those kinds of conversations as well as discovery calls, where you're talking with people and you're hearing the same pain points over and over again. You start to realize, okay, this is a thing. And once you pinpoint what that is and then start to massage it and share it back with people, right? And say, I'm hearing this, and this is how we've done it before. You see what resonates. And from there, it was really easy to start to mold it a lot better. I thought that when I started, I would just be very clear. I thought I was very clear, but then you realize even within a niche, like I just focus on organizational infrastructure with nonprofits and philanthropies, there's a ton of things that I could be doing. And so just even saying, okay, let's knock that down to 3 offerings within the consulting arm and then 3 offerings within the legal arm, that has actually helped a lot, because it also allows you to start saying no. You're very clear, your marketing, all of those things sort of feed into it. But I think like once you start to have more conversations, then it becomes a lot clearer about what you should be offering.
One thing, Nick, that people would recognize, I think, pretty quickly if they're connected with you on LinkedIn or following you on LinkedIn is that you post a lot of videos and you get some really great engagement on those videos. Just kind of talk us through what that's done for your business or why you are so prolific in publishing videos on LinkedIn.
So I will say that the idea, I know that we had talked about it within the program. And, when people were talking about video and then you would see all these posts about video being the next big thing, I'm like, well, I don't know if that would work for me. But again, I'm always willing to try something. And I found that just with my volume of work, it was hard to keep up the pace that I wanted to do my writing on, which was weekly. And I thought, well, maybe I can do videos and see how that goes. And it was, just the first video, just so well received, and it just grew from there. And it's done a few things. One, it has made people very clear about my positioning, my thoughts in the sector, my thoughts about nonprofits and philanthropies and how to build infrastructure. So when I get on discovery calls, my rate of having that discovery call turn into a client engagement is really high, because when they get on the call with me, they feel like they already know me, because they've actually quoted things that I've said from the video and said, well, I know you think this way, or I really love this video, and they feed it back to me. So we're aligned before we even have our first conversation, which I think is amazing. The other thing is it allows me to share value with people who may not be able to become my client for whatever reason. And I'm able to share lots of value and resources with them, and they're able to engage. And so if someone asks a question in response to a video, then I respond, and we're able to engage that way as well. So I'm constantly providing education and value to those who may not enter into a client engagement with me. And then the third is I've actually gotten clients from those videos, right? Where people, again, it is one, I was talking about something that really resonated with them and they reached out about it. Or two, sometimes people think they know what you do, but they don't really know what you do. And so once they see the video and then a need comes up, they're like, oh, you were just talking about governance, or you were just talking about grant making. I have a friend who is, focused on grant making, or they have an issue with their board. I'd love to put you all in touch. And that has happened a few times, and they've become clients. So it's been really fun, first of all, but then it's really been rewarding as well.
And to give people a sense, this is not you publishing one video here, one video there, just kind of seeing how it goes. You've really made it a part of your routine and a habit. How often are you publishing? How many videos are going up, within a period of a month or so, typically?
I post weekly. So it's called Fast Bill Fridays. And so I post every Friday. And at this point, I've done about 37 of them. So ever since I started, I've posted every week. And if I don't post, like, for example, when we're going into the holidays, I think things can get lost in the shuffle, but I still want to share value and be present. And what I'll do is I'm doing a flashback for a Fast Forward Friday. And so I'm pulling up a video from previous months and playing that. So I'm still showing up every Friday.
Nice. Flashback Friday. Here we come.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah, fantastic. That consistency, right, is so important. And whether it's video or any other content, and just being present in front of your ideal clients, it really is critical. So I want to thank you so much again for sharing today some of your insights and a bit of your journey. It's really been great. I also want to make sure that people can learn more about you and your work. So where's the best place for them to go?
Sure. So first, thank you so much for having me, Michael. I really enjoyed the conversation. And our website is buildupadvisory.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Nicole Campbell, and on Twitter at Nick is Building Up.
There we go. All right, Nick, thanks so much.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Success Podcast. For more episodes and to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, head on over to iTunes. And if you'd like to develop consistent lead flow and a highly profitable consulting business, learn more about our coaching programs at consultingsuccess.com.